just when you thought it was safe to go onto iTunes. This is Next Level Guy, the only website that makes self-development as fun as going to the movies. It's time to take the red pill and escape the Matrix.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Level Guy Show. Today's guest is Myke Macapinlac. Myke is a men's dating coach who teaches men how to become socially confident, have better relationships, and get the life that they've always wanted. I've been a fan of Mykes for a number of years, and he's honestly one of the nicest guys you can meet. He gives great advice, makes awesome products, and his new podcast is a must listen to as it can change your life. Next Level Guy Show is sponsored by many wonderful affiliates. To see the current deals and to get 10% off from a number of affiliates, simply go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates. There you'll find all the latest deals and special offers. Everything that you spend there is on an affiliate link, and a small percentage of each sale will be paid back to Next Level Guy to help the running of the podcasts. Thank you as always for listening. Happy shopping. Let's get to the interview.
Firstly, you're an absolute star on the internet, but how would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know who you are?
So I help shy guys improve their social confidence so that they can succeed in all areas of their life. Because, as you know, the ability to create new relationships and meet people very quickly is what determines a happy and successful life. It's not what you know, but who you know.
I completely agree with that. I mean, how did you get into teaching men to better their lives? Was it something you wanted to do as a kid, or is it just something that you've gradually developed with your own transformation?
So it started off as my own desire to solve my own social anxiety. So the whole thing started when I moved to Canada from the Philippines, and the first few years in a brand new country was just a huge struggle for me because number one, I didn't speak English back then. Number two, I just had really bad social anxiety, and I found it really hard to make friends, let alone get dates. So I spent a lot of time at home, watching TV, playing video games, and when I was out, I'd be the guy, standing on the sidelines with my drink pressed against my chest while I watch everyone have fun. And I was tired of missing out, so I wanted to do something about my situation back then.
And, I mean, is that something that you see quite a lot nowadays? Is this like one of the biggest issues you face? Or, is it our obsession with technology and no longer, dealing socially with people? What do you think is the biggest issue we as men face today?
In terms of meeting people?
Yeah, I mean, socially, for getting dates, relationships, confidence, do you see like an overriding factor that causes it?
Oh yeah, for sure. A few things. Number one, a lot of men don't know what they want and what they're looking for. And from my experience after working with hundreds of different guys, like really helping them improve their social confidence, whether it's making friends, getting dates, a big thing is to have a clearly defined goal. Like you have to know what kind of person you'd want to connect with, because everything else that you do from then on is determined by that decision, right? So, for example, for me, I got really clear that I want to connect with high quality, positive, driven individuals. Ideally, I'd love to meet other entrepreneurs. And back then, before I took the time to define that, I wasted a lot of time going to bars and nightclubs, meeting random people. And obviously, because we didn't have a lot of things in common, it was hard to build relationships with them. So one of the key things that I teach my guys is to really define the things that are important to you, like pursue those things first and then meet people along the way. Because as you know, mutual interest is the foundation of every great relationship. And it's so much easier to connect with someone if both of you like the same things.
I mean, this was one of the main reasons I was attracted to your stuff, was because it was about dealing with the person. You weren't, one of these guys who said, do this routine, say this line, and the girl will come to you. You were actually about, fixing the person, making the person confident and happy with themselves. So, say somebody's just now sitting, they're feeling like an imposter, they're not enjoying their life, they're doing the same thing that all their friends are doing. They want to just be themselves. How do you start that? What's your sort of standard protocol? Is there an area of their life that you look at asking them to fix?
Totally. Well, first of all, thanks for the kind words. I mean, it means a lot that, you've been following my stuff for a number of years now. And, I'm really glad we can get on this call, and talk about this. So to answer your question, the first thing that I teach my guys is that the relationship you have with yourself dictates every single relationship that you have. So if you have a poor self-image, if you have negative beliefs, then it wouldn't matter, like all the lines and tactics and strategies. It doesn't matter if you have the perfect approach or if you're a good storyteller or if you have, good style. If at the end of the day, you don't think that you're someone worth getting to know, then all your subconscious communication will convey that, and people will be turned off eventually, right? So the first thing that I get guys to really look into is to identify all the limiting beliefs that are holding them back from becoming the person that they truly want to become. So, it starts with, a few common ones that I hear from a lot of guys are things like, I'm not good enough, or girls like that wouldn't go for a guy like me, or they're so concerned about what other people would think of them, or, like they've been rejected so many times in the past that they think that, people are mean and they don't want to talk to them. So really getting down to the seeds, like the root causes of these limiting beliefs and challenging them individually, because the thing is, like your outcome is determined by your beliefs, right? So if you don't change your beliefs first, then you're going to keep getting the same result. So that's where we start. The second thing we do is, we get a clear picture about the type of guy that they're working towards. Because, kind of like what I said, if you don't know the kind of relationships you want to achieve, and if you don't know what the kind of person you're working towards, then everything else you do will be, it wouldn't move you forward because you don't know what you're moving towards, right? And then the third thing that we talk about would be, becoming the type of person that people want to meet, right? So, if you think about it, I'd rather become the magnet. I'd rather have people inviting me out, asking me to hang out with them, like girls interested in talking to me before I make the move. And because if you present yourself as someone worth getting to know, then all your interactions become so much easier. And then the last thing that we talk about is to just go to the right places, right? Because your environment determines how people behave. Like girls who go to bars and nightclubs are going to be different girls who attend personal development events. So again, I'm just using my own example, but it comes down to figuring out the type of person you want to meet, where they show up, and how can you put yourself in those types of environments more regularly.
And is this, these kind of insecurities, do you believe that you already know what these insecurities are? How can somebody find out what these, their own feelings are and to deal with them? Is there a method that you used? Should you just write down your biggest fears, or is there something else people can do?
Well, I usually ask them what their goals are, and most guys come to me and, they say something like, I want to feel more comfortable in any social settings, or I want to attract more women, or I want to have more friends, and like those are very common goals with the demographic that I work with, which are, professionals in their late 20s, late 30s, the majority of them have engineering jobs, they're IT professionals, like the techie people, right? I get a lot of those guys. And, like once we're clear about what they want and what they're working towards, I ask them, like what are beliefs, what are stories that you tell yourself that's preventing you from getting there? And that's when they start to share, feelings of inadequacy. A lot of them just don't have a clear plan. A lot of them just lack the experience because they were conditioned by their environment to just go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and the rest will be taken care of. Like, you wouldn't believe how many guys I talk to who tell me that story. They're like, I was told that if I focus on academic success and I have the money, then everything else will just be taken care of. And, they come to the realization in their mid to late 20s that that's not the case. And they have to learn a different kind of skill set in order for them to succeed socially.
I think you'd have a field day with me. Your typical client sounds very much like I was even a year ago, It was the thing of, if I have this, then I'm going to become happier. If I do that, I'm going to become happier. And if you're not happy in your own skin, you'll never be happy with the person you are. And so do you recommend things like morning rituals? Do you recommend things like mantras? Or, can you go into how you would deal with a client as such?
Yeah, totally. So again, the biggest thing that I focus on is guys really improving their self-image. And, I give, when I coach guys, I give them access to my online program, which kind of supplements my coaching. So the first thing that we talk about is, adapting a practice of meditation, right? Because a lot of guys have panic attacks, they have anxiety attacks when they're at parties, they're meeting people. So the biggest thing that I teach them first is to develop the skill of quieting their mind and disassociating themselves with their thoughts. Because a lot of them, they have thoughts in their heads and automatically they're so reactive, right? And what I teach them is you need to understand that these thoughts in your head, they're not you, right? So you need to be able to create that space and train yourself to just observe your thoughts and pick which ones are empowering you and get rid of the ones that are not helping you out. So morning practice of meditation, a morning practice of gratitude. I don't know about you, Ian, but it's hard to meet people when you're negative, right? When you're complaining and you're in a bad headspace. So I get my guys to come up with things that they're thankful for every single day. And then the same thing with, with the night routine. I get them to end their day with a practice of gratitude, and that just puts them in a really good headspace, right? And again, positivity is very attractive. It's so much easier to meet people when you're a happy, easygoing guy than you're cynical and negative, right? So that's it. I like to keep things really simple: visualization, meditation, and gratitude first thing in the morning and before they go to bed at night.
Yeah, it sounds great. Those were a couple of things that really helped me. I used the Headspace app. I don't know if you've used that.
Nice. I do, yeah, for sure.
And I used a gratitude, just one of these free apps, and it really helped, because it stopped me being internalizing all the feelings. I suffered with depression when I was younger, and just that kind of looking out and giving thanks out rather than, just me. It really helped me change, and it became me more, empathy maybe, or something like that. Do you deal with people who suffer with mental illness and depression and things like that?
You know what, Ian? For me, from an ethical perspective, I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist, right? So from an ethical perspective, I just don't take guys with mental illnesses because it's not that I can't help them, but I just feel like I'd rather work with, I want every single guy that I work with to become successful, And for me to get a guy to invest in me, I want to make sure that I give them 10 times the value of what they invested in. So for me, I just don't work with people with those conditions, not because I can't, but because I want to be ethical.
No, you've done some amazing transformations. If you look at your Facebook and your Twitter and things like that, I can't find a bad word about you. Usually there's somebody bad-mouthing somebody, but I've never heard anything but success stories. Is there particular clients that you've worked with that have made remarkable transformations that you're proud of?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to a client's wedding this summer who I worked with a couple of years ago. My client in Vancouver in the West Coast. He's engaged. I have many clients. I say 70 to 80% of my clients are actively dating, and I've got a percentage as well who have quit their jobs and started their businesses, because the skills you learn to attract women are going to be the same skills you learn to attract business partners, and the same skills you're going to learn to travel the world and make new friends and just experience a life of more fulfillment.
Well, I first found you on Facebook. I think it was just after you put a post up about your own personal transformation. you'd lost a lot of weight. You really brought out, the inner dude, shall we call it. Can you go into a little bit about your own transformation? What caused it, the sort of benefits you gained from doing such a thing?
Yeah, so my transformation started off when I was about 16 or 17. I was a teenager. Obviously, dating was a big focus for me back then. And I just started getting rejected by a lot of women, because back then I was overweight and I had really bad acne. And I started to pay attention to the kinds of guys that the girls that I like were going for. And then I started creating the story that if I just look more like those guys, then I would start getting women. So that's when my fitness journey started. I started going to the gym and eating healthier. And in a year and a half or so, I had lost, 60, 70 pounds of fat. And yeah, even though I felt better about myself, women were starting to check me out, I was still socially anxious and I was still socially awkward. And that's when I kind of started diving more into, figuring out this part of my life. And I think back then when I got started, the whole pickup industry was the thing, so I read the game, got really involved in the pickup community. And it's funny because when I got into that, I just had a gut feeling in my within myself that this isn't the way to go. I just, like the whole pickup lines and routines, it just didn't resonate with me. But I thought it was better than what I was doing back then, so I tried it out. I did get success. I met some girls. Took some of them home and stuff. The only problem though was I couldn't get them to stick around. So I'd be getting all these, one-night stands, but really at the end of the day, I want a girlfriend. I want a girl who I can have a great relationship with. I want a good group of guy friends and female friends. And I felt like learning pickup really didn't get me there. It taught me. I think the biggest thing was it taught me a lot of bad mindset, like taking value and always looking for sex and being so. The whole idea of cold approach. I wasted so much time walking around the mall, on the streets, going to the club, trying to meet people, and my life back then, I wasn't moving forward. I was always out meeting people instead of really focusing on myself. And now that when I had taken some time away and started to really figure out who I want to become, who I wanted to meet, and what kind of guy I need to become to attract those people is when my strategy changed. I, again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, I focus on becoming the magnet, right? Becoming someone that people would want to get to know. So I started, on a more spiritual path of really showing myself compassion and self-love and treating myself like I'm someone important, nurturing my relationships with my male friends and pursuing a life that excites me. And since I've done those things, I noticed a huge improvement, in my romantic life as well. Now women, when I talk to them, they're a lot more inclined to talk back, to talk to me. And I've had more sex the last 4 years than in my early 20s, to be honest.
We've got a very sort of similar history with pickup. First of all, congratulations on the better sex life. Something I found with pickup was, it was like you're portraying a character. It wasn't the real you. And since I've become myself and just amplified, it's really made the difference. So is this your principle of social confidence? I know that you do a big thing about being socially confident. Can you go into how that helps and what it is, and how can somebody start working towards being socially confident?
So it's just a skill, right? And if you view everything in life as a learnable skill, and if you have mastered one skill, you can basically apply the same principle to learning a new skill. So kind of like what I mentioned a few minutes ago, the first area of my life that I really mastered was my health and fitness, right? Yeah. And if you kind of break down the mindset and the habits you need to develop to become fit, it's really no different than going from shy to social, right? So the first thing is you need to understand, some basics and fundamentals, right? So understanding nutrition, basic nutrition, understanding the basic movements at the gym. And then from then on, it's just managing expectations, right? Like, if you've never been to the gym and you want to get a six-pack, like obviously that's not going to happen in a weekend. It's about understanding that, things do take time, and it's about building good habits and focusing on the process. And becoming socially confident is no different. So, when I started getting fit, I just focused on showing up at the gym 5 days a week, 45-minute workouts, doing compound movements like squat, bench, and deadlifts. I came home, ate vegetables, ate protein, limited my carbs, drank a lot of water. And that was it, man. Like it's really not complicated. Like getting fit and improving your social confidence is no different. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Figure out who you want to meet. Figure out where they hang out. Put yourself in those environments. Start conversations with people, right? Prepare some conversation topics you want to talk about ahead of time. When you're conversing with people, focus on adding value, becoming positive. And if you feel like there's a connection, whether it's a guy friend or like a girl you're interested in romantically, ask for their phone number, follow up, spend more time. I mean, that's really it, man, to be honest with you. There's nothing sexy about it. The thing, though, as I've started my own business and became an entrepreneur in the same industry, I noticed that a lot of people make things more complicated because, they want to, it's just marketing. It's just advertising, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a great answer. So let's take it back to the very start. So assume somebody is listening to this, sitting on their couch, they don't have a social life, they don't have any kind of sex life, dating life, etc. What would you recommend for them to get over that initial fear of, fear of approaching a female, fear of rejection from being, new friends or the girl in the park that you particularly fancy? How can we overcome this? Where does this sense of fear of rejection come from, and how can we just, move it aside to get what we want in life?
So the first things first is like you need to improve the relationship you have with yourself. The period, right? Like no one wants to be friends with someone depressed, right? No one wants to be friends with someone who's got nothing going on in their lives, right? Like you can't put your happiness on other people. You can't. Like you have to be happy on your own. Does that make sense? Like there's no tactics or strategies out there that will help you if you don't like yourself. So the first thing you want to do is get your shit together. If you're out of shape, go to the gym. If you have bad style, dress better, right? Like if you don't like who you are, start doing more things that you enjoy. Like that's really it. You have to be happy on your own first, okay? Before you start to engage other people. Again, this kind of ties back to the first thing that I said earlier. The relationship you have with yourself dictates the relationship you're going to have with other people.
And that's why I like you, Mike. You just say it like it needs to be said. There's no special phrase or routine. You just say, if you don't like something, fix it. Be the person that you want to be. Just improve your own life and be that magnet that attracts other people in. That was something I didn't like about pickup, was the fakery part of it. It was the being somebody you're not, to attract people who aren't happy rather than just to get something from them. It kind of creeped me out, to be honest. So what would you recommend to somebody who they want to do it but they're dealing with social anxiety? Is there, how can somebody get used to going to bars and clubs or social events that's maybe terrifying them?
I say the first thing they want to do is to, start with the basics and fundamentals, right? So if you kind of break everything down into step by step, the first thing you have to master is eye contact, right? Like you need to be able to hold basic eye contact with people. And then the next thing you want to master is smiling. You want to look people in the eye, smile, right? That's so, first things first, master the basics, eye contact and smile. Once you're good at, and you can do this while you're buying coffee, you're buying groceries, you're going to work, whatever. Just again, it's about baby steps, because there's nothing more that build success than seeing results, right? And you can again, it's about renegotiating your expectations, like cut the crap, stop watching all the infield stuff on YouTube, and again, view everything like a skill, right? So, eye contact, smiling, maintaining like basic heys and hellos, nothing wrong with that. And then from then on, engaging someone into, a few minutes of conversation. And once you're good at that, then you can add the humor. Then you can add the witty banter. Then you can add the flirting. But most guys want to get to those advanced stuff without learning the basics. It's like when guys, want to do all you've seen people do CrossFit, like they want to do Olympic lifting and all the crazy stuff that CrossFitters do when they haven't mastered the basics. Does that make sense? Like, I know it's not sexy, but that's what works, and again, like there's only so many ways you can reinvent health and fitness, and same thing with meeting people. There's only so many ways you can reinvent it, but you can never go wrong by focusing on the principles.
Yeah, so, learn to crawl and then to walk, then to run rather than...
Exactly. In business, like, make pennies first, right? If you can make pennies, then, make dollars. Once you can make dollars, then you focus on making hundreds. And once you can do hundreds, then the thousands, But most people want to hit it out of the ballpark from the very beginning. And that's why they're always disappointed. And when they're disappointed, they have this losing feeling, right? They start to, really... talk to themselves negatively. They start to feel bad, and that's not a recipe for long-term success. I
mean, something that Pickup introduced me to was the concept of the alpha male, and I kind of, I just seen him as a bit of a dick and a bit of a jerk. What do you make of this concept of the alpha male? Is this something guys should aspire to? Do you think it's a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? Something, that guys should forget about and just focus on them being the best version of themselves?
I think everyone's got their own version of what an alpha male is, and I think like to have like this, this ultimate standard of what a guy should be like, I think is, it's all relative, because we all have different goals. Like my definition of success is different from my client's definition of success, from the other coach's definition of success. So I really think it comes down to being more intentional, right? Figure out what success looks like for you, in all aspects of your life, whether it's dating, fitness, business, and your spiritual life. Figure out what success looks like for you and aspire to just get there, right? So for me, it's funny because I was chatting up with someone the other day, and they asked me, like, do I think I'm successful? And then if I think about what my perfect day looks like, and I look up and I reflect on what my life has been the last 4 years, I mean, damn, man, it's pretty damn close to my perfect day. So yeah, in my standards, I am successful. But again, my definition of success is different than other guys' definition of success. So it's about being intentional, figuring out what you want, minding your own business. I think that's key. And don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Like, it's your journey, not theirs.
And that's absolutely brilliant advice. It's the comparing yourself to other people will never work. It's like the guy that goes on Facebook and hates his life because he sees friends having better lives. But you're forgetting that you're comparing your whole life to somebody else's highlights they put on Facebook. It's totally, it's not the real life. So can you talk a little bit about, how did you develop your confidence, your charisma? Was it just going to the gym, building up that, or did you try any sort of, like workshops, or, was there anything else that assisted you along the way? Like, was there good books that you could recommend?
Yeah, so, definitely yes to everything you said. So mentors, books, friends. So I got exposed to this quote. I forgot who said it exactly, but, you become the average of the people you surround yourself with, right? I don't know who said that quote, but I heard that quote at a really young age, and I knew that if I wanted to become more socially confident, I needed to be around more socially confident people. So I was really mindful of, picking my friends, like quality friends at an early age. That's something that I did. I also hired a mentor back in 2008, and then since then I've just gone out of my way to connect with other influencers in this space. Like I'm sure I'm not going to name drop, but I've met a lot of really amazing people. I've got my own podcast too, and I've interviewed a lot of really socially successful people. And obviously after the interview, we got a chance to build a bit of relationships. I got to ask them questions, and we just became good friends throughout the years. And yeah, I really just went out of my way to connect with people who had what I wanted, and I did my best to have good relationships with them. And for books, I would say one of the best books to get started with guys would be Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. So this book talks about the psychology of positive self-image. So kind of like what I said earlier on, like if you don't think you're someone worth getting to know, then everything else that you do will support that. But as soon as you change the way you see yourself, then your outcomes change as well. So that's definitely a book that I would recommend to everyone tuned in right now to check out right away.
No, that sounds good, and it's a book I've been recommended a few times. Now
Oh, really? Nice.
You've mentioned your podcast, and I was just about to come on to that. You've built up this great podcast. You've done some brilliant interviews. Do you want to just talk a little about it? The name of the podcast. How can people check it out? And can you just give a sort of general overview of what it's about?
Yeah, so if you just go to my website, socialconfidencemastery.com, you can see my podcast there and everything else that I have. But basically, the whole idea of the podcast is, again, kind of like with my mission statement, it's really helping guys develop the social skills that they need to be able to make friends, get dates, and succeed professionally. Because, whether you're in business or you want to, advance in your professional life, or you want to get a girlfriend, or you move to a new city, you want to get a date, like anything that has to do with those topics, meeting people, relationships, networking, connecting with influencers. I interview other experts to share their thoughts and insights on those topics. And we just have a lot of fun. We have meaningful conversations, and we share our actionable tips to really help guys take control of this part of their life. And I mean,
something I really noticed from your videos is that you're a very likable guy. You're very, like a sort of very warm person, somebody that you want to get to know more. What do you think about things like charisma? Is that something that we're born with, or do you think we can develop it? Because you mentioned before about being a bit more of a sort of a magnet person. How can somebody develop, if they feel shy and nervous, how can somebody be that person that lights up a room and brings everybody's attention to them to build that kind of friendships?
So I'm not going to take credit for this advice because, I didn't invent this framework. I got this from a book called The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox-Cabane. And if people want to know more about charisma, I highly recommend that book. But, to borrow expertise from Olivia, from her book, so charisma is broken down into three parts, right? It's presence, power, and warmth. And it's definitely a learnable skill, with a few simple tweaks in your mindset, your body language, your presentation, and the way you communicate yourself. Anyone can exude personal magnetism. So again, if you want to find out more, go read her book. But to give the listeners right now some actionable advice, the first thing that you want to focus on is giving the person you're with, whoever you're with, right, your full undivided attention. Put away your phone, look them in the eye, actively listen, and really pay attention to what's going on around you, right? While conversing with that person, and just make them feel like they're the most important person in the world. So presence is the most important part of charisma. The second thing, power. How do you come across as someone powerful? Remember, people will tend to accept whatever you project. So, for example, if you see a guy in a well-tailored suit and he's got a great haircut and he's put together, automatically you'd assume that this guy's successful. He's someone worth getting to know. The same guy, if you see him wearing baggy sweatpants, he's got stains in his clothes, you would automatically assume that, this guy's lazy, he's a slob, his life isn't going anywhere, right? So for people to say that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I mean, I don't know which planet you're living on, man, but we all make assumptions very quickly, right? So it's really figuring out how you want people to what you want people to think of you, and portraying yourself in such a manner, right? Because you do have influence on what people would think of you. And then the last part is warmth. So again, it's just about being genuinely concerned and caring about other people's well-being, right? Like you can't just fake, you can't fake caring about other people. Like you need to have a genuine desire to get to know people and be concerned about their well-being. So all three things combined together is what a charismatic person would do.
Because that was something, that I was taught from a young age was treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter if they're a CEO to the janitor to some guy in the street. You care about everybody. You treat them all with respect. And sadly, it's a way of living that's gone out of our society. So, is this something that you would get people to do? To build up their charisma, build up their social skills, move away from online dating, or do you think online dating has a place for the modern man?
I say, I'm not an absolutist, there's no, one way that's right or wrong for everybody, because like what I said, everyone's different, right? Everyone has different lifestyles, everyone has different upbringings, everyone's dealt with different cards. So for me to rule out one is for me to say that one is better than the other, that's ridiculous, because everyone's so different. Like I have a client who works out of town. He's only, he works in a small town. He does construction, and he's only in a big city during the weekend. So of course, we're gonna focus on online dating, right? His situation is different. I have another client who lives downtown. Of course, we're going to focus on other things because, again, his situation is different, and that's why coaching is so important, right? A good coach wouldn't just give all their clients a cookie-cutter approach, the same way a doctor wouldn't recommend a generic medicine for every patient who comes and see him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always surprised me of how many people have that absolute mentality. It's always you must follow this. You'll never succeed without doing this. And it just doesn't work. There's no, like you say, there's no exact method that's going to work for every single person, because there's such a uniqueness to everybody. They can't possibly get a bit of advice that works for everybody. So, see somebody just now is listening. They've just got out of a bad breakup. They're feeling like shite. What do you get them to do? Apart from, how do they sign up for your coaching? How do they sign up? Where should they go to check out your material?
Yeah, again, just go to my website, socialconfidencemastery.com. Make sure you download the podcast, read my blog, because I want to make sure that you and I are a good fit, right? I appeal to a specific demographic of people. The majority of my clients are genuinely good guys. They have kind hearts. They just have trouble expressing their personality in different social settings. And, if that sounds like you, then, again, check out my material. And if my message resonates with you, then yeah, go ahead, fill up an application form. And if not, that's okay too. There are tons of amazing coaches out there. And I just recommend that you find someone who you respect, you share the same core values, and, someone you can see yourself working with.
See, you're answering my next question already. I was going to ask you about mentors and coaches. So who was your initial coach? Who did you look up to as a role model when you were learning this?
Yeah, so the first coach that I actually hired was Cam Adair. He now runs a website called GameQuitters.com, where he helps people overcome their video game addiction. But he was the first guy to mentor me, and then I've had many other coaches after that. But he was the first guy.
And what did you want to do as a child? What was your ambition growing up?
I just wanted to make a difference. When I was a kid, I love art, I love creating stuff, and I love talking to people. And I just wanted to be in a profession where I get to create stuff and talk to people. That's why I have the business that I have now. So it's perfect for my personality.
Yeah, I mean, you've made some amazing stuff, some things, you've written articles and made videos that have helped a lot of people, myself included. And that's why I've followed you for so many years. You know, you just get better and better, and it's like you're listening to me without actually needing to say it. You put the, you put the stuff out that I need, and I mean, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. So we're moving on to the fun part of the interview. I want to know a bit more about yourself. You know, I know a lot about your approach to dating and coaching and stuff. So we're gonna just have a sort of fast break. Just throw some questions out to you, just whatever comes into your head. So let's start with your favourite song.
My favorite song is Just Friends by Music Soul Child.
Okay, I wasn't expecting you to say that. And is that your favourite kind of band, your favourite kind of genre of music, or what's your go-to?
I'd say that. Like, it's a feel-good song. You know, it talks about a guy liking a girl, and he's just very easygoing and very chill. And you know, the song has a great message when it comes to dating and relationships. So I really like the song.
So, and what is your first book that you can remember loving as a child?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That was like one of the first books that I ever read that I absolutely fell in love with.
Well, I've got a copy here, and I've gone
nice.
through it a few times. So, your favourite podcast? That's not your own.
Well, lately I've been listening to a lot of marketing stuff. So I would say my favorite podcast would be Perpetual Traffic by Digital Marketer.
It's a very good choice. So, what is a guilty pleasure that you can admit to?
I love listening to Korean pop music.
K-pop.
Yeah.
Is there a particular band or one that you love it?
Big Bang. I'm a big fan of them.
Fair play. You know, so what was the first song that you can remember loving when you were growing up, or what's your favourite gym song, or you know, is there a song that got you into music as such? For me,
I think the earliest one that I was a fan of the Backstreet Boys when I was younger. So As Long As You Love Me by the Backstreet Boys, that's probably like one of the earlier songs that I really liked when I was a kid.
You know, you find out quite a few things about people when you speak to them. So say you had all the money in the world, but you still had some kind of job. What would you want to do? Would you do the same thing, or is there something else you'd like to do?
I would do the exact same thing.
Good choice. And can you name the biggest regret you've had in your life so far?
Not asking for help sooner.
And what did the regret teach you? You know, how did it motivate you for life?
Don't waste time, because you can't make more of it.
So, a bit of a morbid question, but what do you wish people would say at your funeral?
Here was a man who lived life to the fullest.
And what would you attribute your success to? You know, you've done some amazing things. You've got a established name in the online world. What things do you do in a day that you think helps you build up that success?
I say just a daily practice of gratitude. Like I just always count my blessings and resilience and consistency. Like regardless of how much money I make every single month, I have the same schedule. I wake up at the same time. I go to bed at the same time. I do the same thing day in and day out, regardless of the results. That's why the results always happen, because I always show up and do the work. And
what sorry, I'm just going to make a question, but I've just realised we kind of covered it. So what's an unusual fact about yourself that few people know, but would, blow people away if they knew it?
I used to speak Arabic because I lived in Saudi Arabia.
When did you move back over?
I lived there when I was from like 10 to 16, and I had to learn how to speak Arabic when I lived there.
And how did that shape your views on things like dating and relationships and things like that?
Well, there was no such thing as dating in the Middle East. Like, everything's prearranged. So the whole concept of dating was so foreign to me, and I didn't learn how to date until I was properly until 21.
And do you still get clients that are coming out of those kind of cultures and looking to start dating? How do they adapt to the sort of, I hate to say the modern world, but this kind of horrible culture of pickup and one night stands
Sure.
that we have?
I get a lot of guys who just got out of a divorce who wants to start off on the right foot. I get a lot of immigrants. I get a lot of those guys. I get a lot of guys who are virgins. I worked with a guy who was 35, never had a girlfriend in his life. So I work with those kind of guys too.
And what is, out of all the content you've made, and you've done some amazing things, what are you most proud of? What 3 things would you get somebody listening to go and check out straight away?
Definitely my podcast. I've definitely interviewed some amazing people on that show. And then my book on Amazon. I'm actually publishing. I'm really loving writing books. So that's going to be a thing for me this year. So, my book on Amazon, definitely check that out. And I would say all the other interviews I've been a part of, like this one. I feel like you're such a good host, Ian. You ask really good questions, and I feel like you're bringing out parts of me that you're bringing out a side of me through this conversation that an average person wouldn't normally see.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I thought I was waffling quite a lot. I find it strange to actually speak to you, because it's like you should never interview your heroes because you worry you'll make a fool of yourself, So, what's a superpower that you wish you could have?
I really connect with Wolverine because what I like about Wolverine is, he still feels a lot of pain, but he just does it anyway, right? He heals very quickly, so I love that about him.
I wish I had that when I was growing up. The rejection would have been a lot easier.
Resilience.
And what kind of movies do you watch?
You know what? I watch a lot of documentary. So a recent one that I really enjoyed was a documentary called The Minimalism. It's on Netflix. It's about living a more intentional life. So I really like that one.
Yeah, because I can't remember the exact quote, but the things that you own end up owning you.
Or love people and use things because the opposite never works. I love that quote from them too.
That's a great quote. So one of the things I used to look at on the website was I used to look at people in movies or the entertainment world and use them as role models and explain how they did great things and how you could use it in your own life. Who did you look up to? Is there people in films or people from the entertainment world that, like Wolverine, that inspires you or you would recommend as great role models for guys to emulate towards?
You know what? I've always loved Will Smith's character on the movie Hitch. That's a movie that I just connected with. It was so positive and delightful, and I really like that movie. I think that's the whole industry is portrayed. Well, the majority of coaches that I know, at least, that movie portrays the love and social and coaching space really well.
Well, we're coming close to the end, so I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to do this. So we're coming up to the big questions. If you had to give a bit of advice just now to everybody listening, to all of mankind, what would you say to them?
I would say treat yourself like you're someone important, because in a lot of ways you are, and make yourself a priority, because kind of like what I said multiple times, I know I sound like a broken record, the relationship you have with yourself dictates the relationship you're going to have with other people. So really treat yourself like someone who matters to you.
Perfect. And I've noticed that you're currently writing your latest book. Can you go into that a little bit? When can we expect it? What's it about? How can people get copies of it, like advance copies, etc.?
Yeah, so, it's going to come out this month. I just got to figure out the exact date, but it's called The Social Life Upgrade. It's a shy guy's guide to more confidence, more dates, and more friends. So it's a summary of everything that I've taught my clients so far. So yeah, it's been a delight writing the book because, I really had to think back and reflect of, like the last, 5+ years that I've been doing this. And, I put everything that I've learned in the short, actionable, concise books. And I think one of the things that my clients love about my coaching is that I like to simplify everything. If we can instead of doing 10 things, if we can do it in 5, we do it in 5. If we can do 5 things in 3 steps, we do it in 3 steps. So I want to make sure that all my books are fluff free, right? They're actionable, and you can read it in one sitting. So yeah, it's going to be an easy read for people that'll give them actionable advice to take their social life to the next level.
Oh, I like it. And how can somebody keep in touch with you? Can you go into your social media? Can you just give some examples of your books, etc.? How can if people want to find out more about you, what should they do right now?
Well, my name is hard to spell. It's Myke Macapinlac. So just go to my website, socialconfidencemastery.com, and they can find all the links to my books, my courses, my podcast, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Facebook page. Like, everything's there.
Well, the floor is open to you, Myke. If there's anything that you want to say, about your coaching, about your books, anything you'd like to say to anybody listening right now?
Yeah, all I can say is, if you feel like you relate to my story and you need help and with regards to improving your social confidence when it comes to meeting more friends, getting quality dates and having a better relationship with yourself, and if that's something that sounds good to you, fill up an application form. Let's connect. Again, go to my website, socialconfidencemastery.com, and all the information should be there. And Ian, you've been such a great host. You asked really good questions, and I appreciate your support throughout the years, and it's been a treat being on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Myke. I really appreciate it. I'm loving the podcast. I can't get enough of your stuff. You've helped me through some difficult times. You've been an inspiration to me, and you're somebody I look up to as a role model as well. So thank you very much for everything that you do. That's it, and I just can't thank you enough. So it's been an absolute pleasure, the chance to speak to you, and I'll be in touch shortly.
I was the first of many, man, for sure.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Myke. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
Bye.
That's it for another week. Thanks for listening. Absorb it, practice it, use it. Until next time, keep trying to hit that next level in your life.